The mortgage statement trembled in my hand, the due date circled in threatening red ink. My mother's text glowed on my phone screen. Mortgage due. No money. Need help now. No greeting, no acknowledgement of what she'd done, not even my name. I stared at both screens, the bill and the message, and felt an eerie calm settle over me as I typed my reply. My name is Kate. 3 simple words that carried the weight of everything they'd never understood. My name is Kate. I'm 32 and a financial advisor. This is the story of how I stopped being an ATM and started being a person. 3 months earlier, I'd been organizing my father's home office, the same office in the same house I'd been paying the mortgage on for 5 years. Dad had called that morning, his voice carrying that special tone of helplessness he reserved exclusively for technical problems. Kate, these tax documents need scanning and I can't figure out the new printer. You know how these things are. I did know, just like I knew he'd never bothered to learn because I was always there to do it. Just like my brother Eric never bothered to get a job because our parents were always there to support him. The manila folder was sitting innocently between insurance paperwork and utility bills, labeled in my father's precise handwriting, last will and testament. I shouldn't have opened it. I had respected their privacy for years, quietly transferring money for groceries, for home repairs, for property taxes, while asking nothing about how they managed their finances. But something about that folder, perhaps its weight, perhaps its placement right on top, made my fingers move before my brain could object. The pages felt cool and official under my fingertips. The language was formal, detached, like it was discussing strangers rather than family. I scanned through boring legal paragraphs until 5 words stopped my heart. All assets to our son, Eric. I flipped backward, forward, searching for my name, for some explanation, for some acknowledgement of my existence beyond a generic opening line about loving both our children equally. Nothing. The house I had been paying for, the retirement accounts I had helped them build, the collection of antiques I had insured. Everything was going to Eric. My hand wasn't trembling. It should have been, but instead it was perfectly unnaturally still as I held the document that confirmed what I'd always suspected, but never wanted to believe. I wasn't family. I was a resource. Kate, what's taking so long with those scans? My father's voice preceded him into the room. He stopped in the doorway, his eyes moving from my face to the document in my hands. For a moment, the mask slipped. Fear flickered across his features before settling back into the entitled expression I knew so well. That's private, he said, reaching for the will. I held it up, just beyond his grasp. Is it? Because I think it concerns me quite directly. Or rather, it very deliberately doesn't include me. Kate, everything to Eric? My voice was dangerously quiet. After everything I've done for you and Mom? Dad's mouth opened, closed, opened again. He ran a hand through his thinning hair, a nervous gesture I'd seen countless times when he was preparing to deflect responsibility. It's complicated, he finally said. 2 words. That's all he offered after I'd spent 5 years keeping this roof over his head. 2 dismissive words that confirmed I was owed no real explanation. Mom, I called, not taking my eyes off my father. Could you come in here, please? Her footsteps were quick, concerned. She appeared beside Dad, her eyes darting between us, instantly absorbing the tension. What's wrong? She asked, before noticing the document in my hand. Her face fell. Oh. That single syllable contained volumes, not surprise that I'd found out, not regret that they'd done it, just disappointment that they'd been caught. Kate, honey, she began, her voice taking on the soothing tone she used when explaining why something unfair was actually perfectly reasonable. You don't need the inheritance. You have a good job. You're independent. Eric, well, she gestured vaguely, as if his 3 decades of deliberate helplessness were some unfortunate medical condition. He struggles. We just want to make sure he's taken care of. The unfairness of it hit me like a physical blow. I'd been paying their mortgage while working 60-hour weeks. I'd been fixing their plumbing on my rare days off. I'd been ordering groceries when they complained the store was too far to drive to. Meanwhile, Eric lived in their guest room, contributed nothing, and was somehow the one who needed to be taken care of. I looked at them, really looked at them, and for the first time saw not my parents, but two people who had made a business transaction, my support in exchange for nothing, not even the basic respect of acknowledgement. "Got it," I said, placing the will carefully on the desk. "Glad to know where we stand." I walked out without looking back, the soft sound of the closing door more final than any slam could have been. The bank statement showed $3,743.81 in my account that I hadn't transferred to them. After 5 years of automatic payments, seeing my own money still in my account felt almost wrong, like I was forgetting something essential. 2 weeks of silence had passed since I'd discovered the will. 2 weeks in which I'd ignored their calls, their texts, their voicemails about broken garbage disposals and empty refrigerators. I kept expecting to feel guilty. Instead, I felt lighter with each passing day, as if I'd put down a burden I hadn't known I was carrying. Then my phone lit up with my father's name. "The property taxes are due." 4 words. No greeting. No acknowledgement of what had happened. No recognition that anything had changed. I stared at the message, a strange bubble of laughter rising in my throat. They really thought this would work, that I'd read those 4 entitled words and immediately transfer the money, like a vending machine responding to the correct combination of buttons. "I'm sure Eric will handle it," I typed back, "since the house is his and all." The response was immediate, a call from my mother that I let go to voicemail. Then, "Kate, please don't be like this, we need to talk." Now they wanted to talk. Now that the property tax bill had arrived and reality was knocking at their door with its hand outstretched. I waited an hour, imagining them staring at their phones, before responding, "There's nothing to talk about, you made your choice. Now you can live with it." That evening, Eric's name appeared on my screen. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won out. "Sis, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal, just help them out like you always do." The sheer entitlement of it made me laugh out loud in my empty apartment. Not a big deal? They had written me out of their lives except as a source of funding, and he thought that wasn't a big deal. "No," I replied. "I think you've got it covered since you're the favorite and all." "Oh my God, are you seriously mad about the will?" he shot back. "Grow up, man, it's just money." Just money. Now that it was his to inherit, it was suddenly insignificant. The same money that had been important enough for them to accept from me for years. "Then you won't mind using some of that money to pay for the mortgage, right?" Silence. A few minutes later, my mother tried again, this time with her specialty, guilt disguised as family obligation. "Kate, we're your parents. Family takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just abandoning us." I had to take a deep breath before responding, my fingers hovering over the screen. 5 years of payments, 5 years of responding to emergency calls about broken appliances, 5 years of arranging my life around their needs while they planned to give everything to the son who contributed nothing. "You made it clear I wasn't part of the family when you left me out of the will," I wrote. "Now Eric can take care of you." The next text came from my father, and it was the one that broke something inside me. "We're not asking for much, just enough to cover the mortgage for a few more months until we figure things out. Don't be selfish." Selfish. The word blazed in my mind like a neon sign. I had given them thousands of dollars, countless hours, endless energy, and I was the selfish one? "No," I replied. "I'm done." I turned off my phone, poured myself a whiskey, and felt the first real peace I'd experienced in years. The notification appeared on my banking app the next morning. Money request, $3,500 from Margaret Wilson. No message, no explanation. Just a digital hand thrust out, palm up, expecting to be filled. I stared at it for a full minute, marveling at the brazenness. They hadn't even bothered to ask. They'd just assumed I would comply like I always had. I declined the request with a swipe of my finger. 5 minutes later, my phone rang with my mother's name. I let it go to voicemail. A text followed immediately. "Kate, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it?" I waited before responding, letting the anticipation build on their end. Because it's not my responsibility. Try Eric. Another call declined. We're going to lose the house if you don't help us. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost insulting. They had savings. They had retirement accounts. They had options. What they didn't have was the willingness to use their own resources when they were so accustomed to using mine. Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter, I replied. My father jumped in. You really going to let your parents become homeless? I actually laughed out loud. The emotional blackmail was so blatant it bordered on parody. They weren't about to be homeless. They just didn't want to dip into the money they were saving for Eric. That night, Eric texted again. Dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I felt my jaw clench. This entitled little parasite had the nerve to lecture me while he contributed nothing. You mean the same money you're inheriting? I shot back. Why don't you send it? You know, I don't have that kind of cash right now. And there it was, the double standard laid bare. It was perfectly reasonable to expect me to drain my accounts, but the second it was his turn, suddenly he had nothing to give. Guess you better figure it out then, bro, I replied. You're the one they chose. The next day, my phone rang at work. Kate? It was the receptionist from my apartment building. Your parents are here, and your brother. I froze, my coffee cup halfway to my lips. What? They're saying it's an emergency and that you won't answer their calls. The sheer audacity of it sent a surge of anger through me. They had actually shown up at my workplace because I had stopped being their personal bank. Don't let them up, I said, my voice tighter than I intended. I'm not expecting them. They're being kind of pushy, she said awkwardly. I don't care, they can leave. I hung up and immediately received a text from my mother. Kate, we're downstairs, open the door. Not a question, not an explanation, just another demand. I didn't reply. Kate, we're not leaving until you talk to us. I stood up from my desk, a cold fury replacing the initial shock. If they wanted a confrontation, I would give them one they wouldn't forget. The elevator ride to the lobby felt like descending into a battlefield. I wasn't nervous, I was preparing. For years, I had swallowed my feelings, had accepted their dismissal, had tolerated their blatant favoritism. Not anymore. The lobby doors slid open, and there they stood, a family tableau carefully arranged for maximum guilt. My mother with her arms crossed, the very picture of maternal disappointment. My father rigid and entitled, as if his mere presence should command my obedience. And Eric, slouching against the wall with an expression of bored inconvenience, as if this whole situation was just a tedious errand he'd been dragged along for. The moment my mother saw me, she launched into her performance. Kate, finally, we need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, deliberately casual. No, you need to leave. She blinked rapidly, genuinely shocked that her script wasn't being followed. Excuse me. You heard me. You don't get to just show up at my apartment demanding money. That's insane. My father scoffed, his face darkening. Are you really going to let us lose the house over a petty grudge? I laughed, a cold, humorless sound that seemed to surprise even me. Petty grudge? Oh, you mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills but not good enough to be in your will? That grudge? My mother gasped theatrically, one hand flying to her chest as if I'd physically struck her. Kate, that's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family. I tilted my head, studying her with new clarity. Best for the family? You mean best for Eric. Just say it. A heavy silence fell, thick with unspoken truths. Eric, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. Look, sis, I don't even want to be involved in this. I didn't ask for anything. I turned to him, the final thread of my restraint snapping. No, you just sit back and take everything that's handed to you. You're 28 years old, Eric. Get a damn job. His face flushed red. Sis, what the hell? I stepped closer, holding his gaze. You heard me. You want to inherit the house? Start acting like a homeowner. You want to be the golden child? Start paying their damn bills. I'm done being your personal bank. Eric looked away, suddenly fascinated by the lobby floor. My mother took a deep breath, recalibrating her approach. Kate, he's your brother. I nodded slowly. Yep, and I've supported him longer than you ever have. My father's face darkened to a dangerous shade of red. You're being selfish. That word again, the one that had always been used to keep me in line, to make me question my own worth, to ensure I kept giving without complaint. I laughed, genuinely this time. Oh, that's rich coming from you. I gestured between them. You two decided that Eric deserved everything and I deserved nothing. And now that it's time to pay the price for that choice, you're trying to manipulate me into fixing it for you, not happening. My mother's voice sharpened, the soothing facade cracking. We thought you'd be mature about this. I raised an eyebrow. Mature? You mean quietly accept that I was betrayed and keep paying your bills? Because let's be real, that's what you wanted. My father stepped forward, trying to loom over me like he used to when I was a child. Kate, we raised you. We fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I met his gaze without flinching. I already did, for years, and you repaid me by cutting me out. My mother's lip trembled in a calculated display of vulnerability. We thought you'd understand. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. Oh, I understand perfectly. I understand that I was never family to you, just a paycheck. Another silence fell, this one crushing and undeniable. I turned to Eric, who was still pretending to be invisible. And you? What's your excuse? You had years to grow up, to get your life together, to contribute. But you didn't, because you knew they'd take care of you. And when they're gone, you just expected me to step in, huh? Eric finally snapped, defensive anger replacing his affected boredom. What do you want me to say, sis? I didn't ask for this. I nodded slowly, a strange calm settling over me. Right, you didn't ask. You just benefited. His mouth opened, then closed. He had nothing. My mother tried one last maneuver, her voice soft and wounded. Kate, we're family. Family takes care of each other. I stared at her for a long moment, seeing her clearly perhaps for the first time. Exactly. So why didn't you take care of me? She froze, the question hanging in the air between us, unanswerable. I let out a slow breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're done here. I turned and walked back inside, the door closing behind me with quiet finality. Before I even made it back to my apartment, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. Wow, after everything we've done for you, you really going to abandon us? I smiled to myself as I typed, No, you abandoned me. I'm just finally accepting it. I hit send, then blocked their numbers one by one, feeling each block like the cutting of a chain that had been weighing me down for years. 2 days later, I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw it. A post from my mother that made my blood run cold. Though I had blocked their direct messages, I had deliberately left their social media visible to monitor any public fallout from our confrontation. A mother's love is unconditional, but it breaks my heart when a child forgets where they came from. True family stands together through hardships, not turns their back when it matters most. Please pray for us during this difficult time as we face losing our home, because someone we love has chosen money over family. The comments section was filled with sympathy and outrage on her behalf. Old family friends, distant relatives, members of their church, all of them rallying around my parents, the apparent victims of a heartless, ungrateful daughter. My father had shared it, adding his own commentary. After everything we sacrificed to raise our children, I never thought I'd see the day when one of them would abandon us in our time of need. The house where we made so many memories may soon be gone because blood apparently isn't thicker than water anymore. But it was Eric's post that truly stunned me. Some people think family is just a transaction. They'll help you only if there's something in it for them. That's not how I was raised. I'd give anything for my parents, even though I don't have much to give right now. True family means sacrifice, not keeping score. I love my parents and I'm grateful for everything they've done. even if others have forgotten what family means. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. The man who had never sacrificed a thing in his life, who had lived off our parents' generosity and my financial support, was now positioning himself as the devoted son while I was cast as the villain. They were rewriting history in real time, crafting a narrative where I was the selfish one, the heartless one, the one who had failed to understand what family meant, when in reality, I had been the only one actually supporting this family for years. I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. I could ignore it, take the high road, let them spin whatever tale made them feel better about their choices. But something inside me rebelled at the thought. Why should I bear the burden of their lies on top of everything else? For 5 years, I had silently shouldered their financial needs. For my entire life, I had accepted their favoritism without complaint. But I could not allow them to destroy my reputation and relationships with these self-serving falsehoods. My fingers moved across the keyboard with deliberate precision as I composed my own post. I've been silent about a painful family situation, but recent public posts have forced my hand. I need to set the record straight. For the past 5 years, I have been paying my parents' mortgage, covering their property taxes, and funding home repairs, all while working 60-plus hours a week. My brother Eric, who is 28, has never held a job nor contributed a dollar to the household expenses. Last month, I discovered that my parents had updated their will to leave everything, including the house I've been paying for, to Eric alone. When I questioned this decision, I was told it was because he needs it more, and I was being selfish for even asking why I'd been excluded. I made the difficult decision to stop financially supporting them after this discovery. Their response was not to acknowledge the hurt they'd caused or to try to make amends, but to demand I continue paying their bills as if nothing had happened. Family should indeed stand together through hardships, but family is also about mutual respect and recognition. After years of being treated as nothing more than a financial resource, while watching my brother be rewarded for his deliberate helplessness, I've chosen to step back. This isn't about money. It's about recognizing your own worth when others won't. It's about finally acknowledging that love shouldn't be conditional on what you can provide. To those who've reached out with concern after seeing my family's posts, thank you, but please know that I'm doing well. For the first time in years, I'm prioritizing my own well-being, and that's not selfish. It's necessary. I hit post without hesitation, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time, I wasn't hiding my truth or protecting theirs. I was simply stating the reality that they had worked so hard to obscure. The responses were immediate and overwhelming. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years sent messages of support. Cousins who had always sensed something was off with our family dynamic commented with their own observations of the favoritism I'd endured. Even a few of my parents' friends reached out privately to say they'd always seen how unbalanced the situation was. Of course, my family's reaction was swift and vicious. Eric sent a scathing message calling me a traitor for airing our dirty laundry. My father left a voicemail full of threats about how I'd regret this, how I'd crawl back eventually, how I'd see that family was all that mattered in the end. But for the first time, their words held no power over me. The spell was broken. The fog of obligation and guilt had lifted, and I could see the situation with perfect clarity. I had been used, and now that I was no longer useful, I was disposable. I blocked them on every platform, erasing their ability to reach me with their manipulations and accusations. It wasn't an emotional decision anymore, it was a practical one. They were toxic, and I deserved better. In the weeks that followed, I found myself sleeping better than I had in years. The constant anxiety that had hummed beneath my everyday life, the anticipation of the next emergency call, the next financial demand, had vanished, replaced by a profound sense of peace. I started using the money I'd been sending them to build my own future instead. I invested more in my retirement accounts. I took a vacation for the first time in 3 years. I even started dating again, no longer too exhausted from managing 2 households to maintain a social life. Some people asked if I missed them, if I ever thought about reconciliation. The truth was both simpler and more complex than they expected. I missed the parents I thought I had, the family I believed in. but those people had never really existed. They were a fiction I had created to justify my one-sided contributions, a comforting lie I told myself to explain away the inexplicable favoritism I'd endured for decades. The real question wasn't whether I missed them, but whether I missed who I was with them, constantly anxious, perpetually giving, forever seeking an approval that would never come. And the answer to that was an unequivocal no. 3 months later, I received a mortgage statement in the mail, forwarded from my parents' address because I was still listed as an authorized recipient on their mortgage account from when I handled all their finances. Despite my efforts to remove myself from their financial affairs, this particular connection had remained. I looked at the red circled due date, at the amount that had once been such a burden on my finances, and felt absolutely nothing. No guilt, no obligation, no urge to rescue them from the consequences of their own choices. I shredded the statement without a second thought and went back to building the life I deserved, one where I was valued for who I was, not what I could provide. One where family meant mutual support, not one-sided sacrifice. One where my name was Kate, and that was enough.